Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
We're joined on the star line by Jody Gottlieb, executive producer behind Mainstream Media's Somebody Somewhere, available on iTunes and at their website, sbswpodcast.com. Jody, my friend, let's go Beyond the Mic.
Hey, Sean. Good to talk to you.
It's great to talk to you again. When we talked back in June, we agreed that if there was anything interesting that came up from the case, have you back on for a follow-up. Here we are. So let's get everyone caught back up. Season 1 of your show dealt with the death of Seattle federal prosecutor Thomas Wales.
Yes. So back in 2001, Tom Wales, who was an assistant U.S. attorney, was working in his home up on Queen Anne Hill, which overlooks the Space Needle. Late at night, he was shot through a daylight basement window where he was working on his computer. And so for the past 18 years, the FBI and the Seattle police had formed a task force where they were investigating the murder. And if he was killed in the line of duty, he will be and would have been the only federal prosecutor to be killed in the line of duty. That is where we are today. So about 2.5 years ago, my partner and I, David Payne, he's a former federal prosecutor. I am a recovering journalist and former producer at CNN, and David and I met many years ago, and we were both living in Seattle about 2.5 years ago. Someone had brought this case to our attention that it hadn't been solved. It's a number 3 case at the Department of Justice. It has been given unlimited resources to find the murder or murders of Thomas Wales.
Now, how rare is that? A prosecution would be given unlimited resources to solve a case.
I don't know of any in a single murder case. I mean, I think when you look at this case, it is so high up at the Department of Justice that recently Rod Rosenstein came to Seattle to address the public during the Trump-Russia investigation. So that has to be fairly significant, right? He's in the middle, huge investigation. He drops everything, comes out to Seattle. They do a press conference to shine a light back onto this case. And listen, I don't want to be narcissistic, but when David and I started looking into this case, we couldn't believe that it was this high-profile case that really had gotten lost in the wake of 9/11 and really hadn't made the kind of progress that you would expect a case of this nature to be able to move forward. Very early on in the FBI's investigation, they had quickly identified their lead suspect. And for the past 18 years, they have been working to try to indict this man unsuccessfully. And so I want to just say that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. And so this pilot has unsuccessfully been targeted through the FBI. I believe in the FBI's case that they believe he is their guy. They haven't been able to indict him or bring charges, and it's not for the sake of not trying. They have absolutely tried to go after him, and they have done so.
Now, as you mentioned, February of 2018, Rod Rosenstein showed up for a press conference.
Yeah.
Now, was there any significance to that date, an anniversary of the murder, etc.?
It wasn't tied to anything. And so this is where, when you start looking at the timeline of these events, right? We started our podcast in the summer of 2017. We reached out to the FBI in September of 17. We hadn't published yet, but we were doing our research. We were interviewing people. We were in production of our podcast, and we asked for a comment for them to tell us where they are. And they had asked us to stand down. And we said, okay, tell us why we should stand down. At that time, it had been 16 years. If they hadn't uncovered something in 16 years, what makes them think now there's something new or different? And they were unwilling, and it's their prerogative to not share information. They just said, we're doing something. We don't want your reporting to, essentially, my words, meddle in our investigation. And we said, okay, well, give us a reason, tell us why, and we'll consider it. And so because we felt like we didn't have enough information, we continued to pursue it. And our goal was really always to shine a light back on this case, shake some trees, and explore where the evidence took us. And so that's what we've done for the last 2.5 years.
Mainstream Media's Somebody Somewhere, available on iTunes and at their website, sbswpodcast.com, has been chasing the killer. Executive producer Jody Gottlieb joins us Beyond the Mic. Now, Jody, recently prosecutors have charged Shauna Reed.
Yes.
Walk us through Reed and why she is so important to suspect number one.
So Shauna Reed is not somebody whose name had ever come up. During the Rod Rosenstein press conference, and you'll hear this in our episode that we just dropped, you'll hear Mayor Durkin and the U.S. Attorney talk about some of these references to a conspiracy and pillow talk and in a bar. And the indictment of Shauna Reed, who is a 34-year-old woman who has, for all intensive purposes, I will say this, she is innocent until proven guilty. So these are just allegations, and there is an indictment. She deserves the due course of law. And she is a young woman who allegedly has had information and has allegedly given false information to the FBI. And so they have charged her with obstruction and making false allegations. So we're trying to connect the dots between Miss Reed and suspect number one, which are named in these indictments. And so you'll hear in our episode who we feel, and we've bleeped this person out because I'm trying to report and connect the dots to, we have a good feeling on who it is. We're not willing to report at this point because we need more information.
As each day goes by, do you think that we're mere days, weeks, maybe a month or two from an announcement of suspect number one's arrest?
I do believe that we, in the next 1 to 3 months, will have an indictment on suspect number one. The timing of it is interesting. This particular indictment of Shauna Reed, it has become very clear that the FBI is trying to flip her and put the squeeze on her. And, my feeling, and you'll hear in the episode, is that this could be more of the FBI's dog and pony show to mix it up a little bit. It's hard to, we're speculating a little bit here. We haven't seen any connection that we've been able to identify, and she doesn't have a whole lot of credibility, has had a history of, through her grandmother has shared, she has a history of not telling the truth, and these allegations don't help her as far as her credibility, but we'll see what the next steps are with the FBI. I do think that they are going to indict another individual. I don't believe that it is the pilot. Now, is there a connection, an alleged connection between suspect number one and other people? We'll have to see how this plays out. I'm not comfortable reporting on the information that we have at this point, but it is getting interesting. It's important that this case be solved. It has been in the news, in and out of the news for 18 years. It has felt like it hasn't moved forward. This is the indictment of Sean Reed is the first sign that we have had that this case has had some movement.
Jody, do you feel in the creation of Somebody Somewhere that you guys have caused change in this case?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things that's been important is we have shined a light on this case again. And through our reporting and been able to push it out in the press, people are now talking about it. And so it does force function people, including the FBI and other law enforcement, to really address some of these issues that have come up. Listen, do I think we have been the sole factor of this? I'll leave it to you to decide. I'm glad that there's movement, that the public can see that there is a meaningful movement in this case to help solve and, more importantly, get an indictment in the murder of Tom Wales.
The latest evidence and the thoughts behind it is on episode 13 of Rainstream Media's Somebody Somewhere. How sure are you of your knowledge of the identity of suspect number one?
I have very good information on suspect one. Am I able to connect suspect one to Shauna Reed? You're going to have to listen to her podcast and stay tuned. I suspect you and I will be talking at some point soon where I will be able to connect those dots.
Time is running out. Even with this being a special edition of Beyond the Mic, you can't hide from it. It's time for the Rockin' 8. First thing that comes to your mind, no pressure. What event in your life would make a great movie?
Oh, I was in 1982, my family was in a terrorist attack in a restaurant in Paris, and my mother was shot and I was knocked out. I have lived to tell the story. It actually the impetus for me becoming an investigative journalist, and it is an incredible story that I will share probably through a podcast and perhaps a film in the future, but it's an extraordinary story, an important story to tell.
Favorite podcast other than yours?
Ooh, there's been so many. You guys should listen to Helen Gone.
Favorite book right now?
Ooh, anything by Joan Didion. I'm big into Joan Didion. I love the way that she tells complicated stories.
My wife says you can tell a lot about a person with the question, what is your favorite candle scent?
Ooh, something spicy. I do love good cinnamon.
Favorite song right now?
I've been a true Grateful Dead fan, so always and forever, definitely. I do like the Stones, too. Beast of Burden.
Finish this sentence. When this case is closed, I will
be taking a vacation on a tropical island with a drink that has an umbrella in it and be grateful that it's been solved.
You got to pick one. What's your favorite version of CSI?
Ooh, probably the original. I'm kind of an old school girl.
How close do you feel to getting closure on this case?
What does closure look like? I'm going to ask you. Is it an indictment or is it what?
I'm talking indictment.
I think that we will have an indictment soon. Will it be connected to the actual perpetrator of the crime? We shall see.
Jody Gottlieb, part of the incredible team behind Rainstream Media, Somebody Somewhere, available on iTunes and at their website, sbswpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're the best. Thanks, Sean. And listen, you're going to be hearing from me soon. I know it.
And that, my friends, is Beyond the Mic.